Hey there and welcome back. Thanks for sticking with me for part 4 of this series on creating a QuickBooks clone, a full-blown QuickBooks clone. Now, so far we have focused just on like building out the navigation, things like that, and it has taken a lot longer than I would have expected it to do, but we're trying to get things right and we're trying to create the right look for our app, so we're taking the time that we need. But just in case sort of you thought that my job here was just to create like a series of videos mimicking QuickBooks' UI, it is not. Okay, we're gonna go into the logic and all of the other type of thing that we need to do to build out a full clone of QuickBooks. And quite clearly that's going to take a lot longer and many more videos and much longer videos than I was originally anticipating. So with that said, let's crack on with what we were doing. And last time we wanted to be able to click the hamburger menu and close this off. So there are a couple of ways we can do this, and I'm just going to start with the really simplest way of doing it. So I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's go into data and run as our user. Of course, we are referring to the legend that is Terry. Okay, so what we're going to do is click this, that goes away, click it again, it comes back. It's really easy to do, but it all depends on how flash you want to go with it, whether you want all fancy animations and everything like this. So what we're going to do, the quickest and easiest way to do this is simply to have a custom state toggle. So if you're watching this video, I assume that you know what custom states are. They're basically places to store things that your app can use, and they're particularly good for using with conditionals to show or hide things, or to set the state of things, or to to set how things will change based on a condition. So what we're going to do here, we're going to set a custom state on our main page, and I usually, when it's sort of like an internal state that I'm showing just for the use of the app itself, I usually start the state name, the custom state name, with an underscore. Okay, so I'm just going to call this show nav using camel case, and this is going to be a yes or no, so it's either showing or it isn't showing. Okay, so the default value is that yes, it is showing. So what we can do then with that, now we've got that laid out, is for our main nav, what we can do is we can set in the layout, we've probably got it set it to be is visible on page load. So let's say no, it's not visible on page load, and what we can do then is to set a conditional. So what we can say on here then is app, which is the page, and it gives us this option for show nav. And then when we say when it is yes, then we can change this element is visible to true, to ticked, to yes. Okay, so if you like, when it's no, the default value is that it's not visible on page load. When that custom state is yes, which it is by default, then we set it to visible. And we can copy that condition, and on our placeholder, which is really the key to this is what's really going to make the difference, we can do the same thing here. Okay, with the placeholder we can do a little bit more, because the placeholder is a group and it's part of the page rather than the floating group which just floats above it. And what we can do there is to say no, it's not visible on page load, and it's going to collapse when it's hidden, which means the space is going to go away that it occupies, and we're going to animate the collapse operation. And this will give us a little bit of animation. So what we can do then is say slide in left and right. Okay, so that's going to then animate it when it slides out, and just give us that little bit of animation there. Okay, so all that we need to do then with that is that when you actually click on the hamburger menu up here, is we just need a workflow that's just going to set that custom state. So what we can do is go to our group, and we can say, so I've picked on the icon rather than that, So we can go to our group and we can say start edit workflow. Okay, now one of the things that I always do, and with good reason, as I'll show you in a few minutes, is I never put any logic on a UI event. Okay, I always put the logic on a custom event and then use the UI to call the customer, call the UI event, i.e. nav menu is clicked, to then call the custom event. And the reason being is that if you put them directly behind a UI event, then they're not very reusable. You can't sort of use the logic without having to start copy and pasting, I believe in the old dry philosophy, which is don't repeat yourself. And it applies in no code as it does in normal coding. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a custom event, and I'm going to call that toggle nav menu. Oops, can't spell. There we go. And I always set these to green so that I can identify them really easily. Okay, so then what we can do back in this, we can just say toggle the nav menu. So I can then just say custom event, trigger a custom event, and then toggle the nav menu. All right. So in here, all that we need to do is to set the state of our show nav. So what we can do, element actions, set state. It's on the app and show nav. Now what we want to do is that we want it to set it yes if it's no and no if it's yes. And the best way to do that is simply to say apps show nav is no. So that will evaluate to so if you can imagine, if it's no, if the actual value show nav is no and it meets that condition, then we're going to set it to yes. And then if it's yes, then it's going to set it to no. So it's going to create that toggle that we need to set it from yes to no and no to yes, depending on what the current value is. And because we've got the conditions on those controls, we actually don't need to do anything more than that. That's as simple as it gets. Now, with this one here, I've called toggle nav menu, and you could say, why don't you just put it on here for a one action workflow? And I'll just show you that now. And it's a general thing that I do, right? So well, I'll actually show it you, I'll demonstrate it to you. Okay, so you can see here that we get like a finger point because Bubble recognizes that there's an event behind the group. But when we go into the middle and toggle over and hover over the actual icon, we lose that. Okay, and the reason being is that on an iconify you have to specify whether it's clickable. I spelled clickable wrong, but we can forgive them that. So is it clickable? Yes, it is. Okay, so how do we make it clickable? Because there's no button to say start edit workflow. So what we can do in our workflow page is we have to set an event, and we get an element option because it's brought through from the plugin, which is an iconify or a iconify is clicked. Which iconify? So that will be the nav menu. Okay, and again, because we didn't put it on here, I don't have to repeat that in here now. All I have to do is to call the custom event for toggle nav menu. Okay, and that's one of the reasons that I do it, but also just to know that I know where my logic lives. I know that if I look at the grey boxes, which I always reserve for the UI events, direct UI events, I know there's no logic in there. I know I just need to look at which custom event it's going to call, and then I go to that. And then what I can do on here on this workflow folder is I've already got a workflow folder called custom, so I create that. So then when I go in here, I can then quickly just look at my custom events to where most of my real logic is going to live. So people do it different ways. That's just the way that I do it. It works well for me. So you go ahead and decide which way you want it to. Okay, but if we now run that, then we don't lose our little hand option as we go over the iconify, because it's now it recognizes that it's clickable, so it's quite happy to live with that. Okay, so then let's see if this works. So we'll click that. There we go. Back again. Yep. Okay, simple as that. That's how simple it is. like with QuickBooks here, when you do it here, it's kind of got like a fancy animation. I'm not keen on the fact that it makes it look like this is going over there. I prefer for the actual nav menu to look like it's disappearing, because that's what's really happening. So I don't really like it, but it is a bit of a fancy animation that you can use. And you can do something, I don't think you can do something exactly like that without a plugin or without some custom code. But you can get it to have a similar sort of effect, which doesn't really matter. It's not worth spending our time worrying about that. But certainly that does the job for us. And because we've put an animation on our placeholder, which is the thing that's really dragging it across. Okay, that's what's really dragging the whole thing across, is when it's not necessarily the actual nav menu, we're just basically showing and hiding that. It's the placeholder, which is a group behind it, which is freeing up the space, and the fact that on that we've actually got a collapsible animation. That's what gives us that little bit of an animation that we've got in there. It's not tremendous, but it does sort of look nice. It kind of gives you that effect. So now we've got that working, I don't really want to spend any more time on that. We definitely can go back in the future and try and do it a bit more fancy with using workflows to do more animation, but we've got it working, so that's all that matters. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to, before we sort of move on to any more logic, I'm just going to have a look at how we can put the images in here against these individual options, which QuickBooks doesn't do, but I definitely like that. And also we can do something with the nav menu around that as well. So like I say, we're going to put some images down here against each one, and Iconify is really going to help us with this as well. So let's drag on an Iconify onto our group. Let's just put it on there for now. Okay, he's done his usual trick of popping it into something else. So there's our Iconify. So where we actually want it is in our group here. So what we can do is just to pop it in there very nicely. Okay, we can do that. We need to set the size. So let's say that the size for this, we don't want it too big. Let's say it can probably be like 18 by 18. Okay, and it's showing above it because we've set this to be 100% of the, sorry, it's picked the wrong one again. Where are I? Okay, so yeah, so it's set a width of like 145, which is probably too big, so we can probably drop that by 25. So let's put that, and then that drops it there. What we can do in the group actually is to apply a space in between the elements like we've done previously, and that just helps us to give us a little bit of a gap in between. Okay, so we set the column gap to 10, and that gives us a nice little bit of space between. So what we can do there, let's just give it a name. So we can say nav option. Right, so we're probably going to need more space for the text, but the reason why it's limiting that is that on our nav option, which is a group that contains in each cell now the icon and the text, we've got a huge pad in there of 2020, so we can sort of close it up to say 1010, and then that means that we can sort of give this back its see if let's say 150. Yeah, we can get it to 150, and that just helps us to, yeah, just to spread that out a little bit. So with the Iconify, let's just make sure that we vertically center that. And what we need to do then is, the actual name is dependent on the option sets display, which is the name that we put in when we created the option set. Now we can do the same for the icon name. So what we do in our data and in our option sets here, what we can do, we've got all our names under our nav option set, and what we can do is create a new attribute, and this one is going to be the icon. Okay, and the attribute type is still going to be text, it's not going to be an image. So obviously in option sets, when you want to refer just to the name of the option, the standard name of the option, it's always included in this attribute called display, which as it says is a built-in attribute, and you can create other attributes linked to each one. So in other words, we created an attribute called icon, so now we can set an icon name against each one of those, each option. And so if you remember with our iconify, all we need to do is put a text name of an image and then assign it into the element that we want to display it in. So in here, all we need to do is to set it as the insert dynamic data, and then we can say parent groups navopt, and then because we've added it as an attribute, we then get the option for icon. Okay, so probably the color is probably going to be the same as what we have with the actual text. So let's edit the style and copy the color. Okay, and okay, and then probably if we have a look at that, we can see that when we'll just copy this condition and apply it to the iconify as well. Okay, so when the entire group, which it contains both the icon and the text, when that's hovered, then what we want to do is to set the color of that to be white, as we do with our text. Okay, so we get the same effect when you hover in general. So all we need to do now, we've done everything we need to do from a design aspect, so all we've got to do really is to find our icon names. So for now, let's say rather than go into iconify and start messing around, we've got 4 options, we've got 4 on here, so let's just copy these for now on our data. So what we can do is to modify attributes, stick our icon name in there. Okay, and up in here, copy this one, and back in data, modify the attributes for this one. Okay, I'll just do these two because it's only temporary anyway, there's no point spending too much time on that. Okay, so what we can do then, let's give that a go and see if everything's working okay. Yeah, looks good. Yeah, okay, they're displaying in the white color. Okay, I think that looks really good. Okay, I think it's better than not having any icons at all. That's my opinion. They are a little bit, to me, they are a little bit maybe shifted over too much to the left, so maybe we can just reduce that padding on the group a little bit more. Let's see if we once we can select it, maybe we can pop that down to say 5, and it just spreads out a little bit more. Sorry, actually that's had the opposite effect. Let's put it down to 15. Yeah, okay. Now this may trip the, yeah, it has, as expected. So what we can do there is just to knock that down to 140, and then that does the job for us. And yeah, I just think that's aligned it a little bit more from the edge of our button. Okay, it doesn't look quite so far away in the distance. Okay, so we can increase the size of that, actually, increase the size of the images. Maybe they're a little bit too small. Let's say 20. I think 20 will do. If not, we can always increase it too. And can you see the benefit of using the repeating group with this? I need to make that change in one place. Now, I could have also had a repeating group up here to do these options, but remember the work that we had to do to copy each one along the train. We could have used a horizontal repeating group to do that. Okay, but we've saved ourselves a lot of time. There's going to be a lot more options down here than there are up here, so we just have to put it in once and make what change to the first cell, and then it replicates throughout using the repeating group. So that's why the option set really worked for us. Yeah, I think that's probably better. Maybe 22 is too big. So yeah, yep, I'm happy with that. So we just need to sort of maybe have a look at for some icons, which I probably won't bore you with in the video because we went through the process in the last one, which was, in case you need a quick reminder, it was iconified.design, and the icon set we chose to use is icon park outline with 2,600 plus icons. So let's have a look. I would imagine that there'll be an icon for a dashboard. Okay, yeah, we could use this. I mean, I quite like that actually. That looks like a sad face, so I don't want that one. So don't forget we click on it, and then we get the icon name. Okay, and back. My mouse is jumping all over the place. Again, we don't put it on the page, we put it in here. So let's modify the attributes and pop that in there. Save that. And do you remember before when we were doing this guy with the first name, and it auto refreshed for us? Okay, option sets are not data. Okay, they're static lists of things that are stored on the server. So you have to refresh the app for them to be downloaded into your app. Okay, I'm cool with that. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you by putting all of these new other ones in. So I'll do that separately in between the next video. But you get the point. The point is that we're relying on the option set, and that we can assign each option set option with an icon attribute that we can then use to put these in. Okay, so what I mean, at the moment we've just got one that closes that all together. One of the things that I really like, whether that's controlled by the user or it's controlled by the program itself, the app itself, is to be able to maybe shrink all of this down to have like a shortened version of the nav bar. Okay, I'm not going to do that now. I feel that there's bigger fish to fry at the minute. But what I love is so that you get a smaller version of the icon, you get a smaller version of the new button, and rather than the name, all you would get is just the dashboard image. And yeah, so you just get the image of these images, and that way you've got more space without getting rid of the menu altogether. You've got more space, and you see lots of apps do that, and that's why it surprised me with QuickBooks that there's no images. So basically you've got all or nothing, you've got the whole nav menu or nothing, and generally that's not how apps generally work these days. Okay, but anyway, I hope you get the gist of that. Okay, so I'm going to make this a short one because we've had some quite long videos here. I hope that you found that useful for you, and we're going to crack on in the next one, and I hope you'll join me for that. In the meantime, I've not mentioned this for the last couple of videos. Please like and subscribe to the videos if you're getting any value from these. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort for me to put these things together, but it would be nice to know that you're watching, that you like it, and that you're going to subscribe to watch more. It keeps me motivated. It also helps the videos to get pushed up into the search algorithm, so more people can discover and watch them and get value from them as well. So that would be greatly appreciated. But until the next one, take it easy. See you soon.